What's up? This is my final project for mass media and American politics. I'm going to be watching ABC World News tonight. I had done this yesterday, but I did not hit the record button, so I thought I may as well go over some of the things that I had seen yesterday. The first thing to point out is that it was not world news. It was very much American news, very much so American news. I think the only thing they had talked about that could be considered world news was the Pope. From the thumbnails on Disney Plus, it seems like almost every episode since the Pope died has been about the Pope. I don't know if we're gonna see the Pope again. Maybe we're all poped out, but they had kept the almost half of the ABC News nightly news broadcast yesterday. Well, technically Tuesday night was about the Pope, and then they plugged their not only their coverage of the funeral on Saturday, but also their special about Pope Francis's life. And then the rest of it was just American news. It was not world news. I found that very strange with so much going on in India right now. There was a bunch of tourists murdered, and I don't understand the situation fully. From my understanding, though, it seems like things are kind of heating up there with Pakistan. That's obviously world news. A lot going on with Ukraine. The Marco Rubio said that we would be not being involved in peace in Ukraine, and then it seems like then we had some sort of treaty proposal. But yeah, it was just very strange, very very corporate-esque news. It was kind of, they did a lot of plugs. The episode I watched yesterday that was not recorded was on Earth Day, and the last segment of it was dedicated to just plugging a Disney ran Nat Geo documentary about the Earth. But we're gonna watch this one now. This is like 20 minutes. We'll get into it.
Tonight, you will see the incredible images from Vatican City. Pope
Still in the
Francis
Pope.
carrying
Still in the
the
Pope.
crowd,
3 days straight Pope.
thousands coming to see him. In the U.S., breaking news at
That's
this
a big
hour,
one.
what President Trump said just moments ago about his tariffs on China. And in New Jersey and New York City at this hour, concern over air quality amid this massive fire. First tonight, the powerful images from
Okay,
St. Peter's Square.
so what's interesting is that that's the same things they were talking about yesterday. That's actually less. Yesterday they had a segment on some case in Boston of a woman that had killed her husband a couple years ago. It was an interesting case, but I mean, that's just not world news. That's just not world news. I mean, at the end of the day, that is not world news. I'd be interesting to see if they have another kind of bit like this. Just kind of things that are more very very attention grabbing, that are not so important. But I'll let
Air. Bells tolling as Pope Francis is carried through the enormous crowds gathered there. The people's Pope with the people again. More than 25,000 coming to see him, and James Longman is in the crowd for us. Here in the U.S. tonight, the massive fire burning in New Jersey, the state of emergency right now, and now the air quality alerts right into New York City tonight. Breaking news, President Trump just moments ago, and what he said about China and his 145% tariffs on all Chinese goods coming into the U.S. And tonight, who blinks first, the U.S. or China? And our President Trump and President Xi talking. Major developments tonight involving Ukraine. President Trump lashing out at President Zelensky after Zelensky does not agree to what the U.S. proposed, which called for Ukraine giving up the land taken by Russia since the invasion and Crimea. Vice President Vance tonight warning, say yes, or it's time for the U.S. to walk away.
funny angle
In
of it.
Boston tonight, the dramatic testimony in
Oh
the
my
Karen
God.
Lee murder trial. Accused of
Is that really 2 days straight worth of newsworthy? I mean, you'll understand the case a little more, obviously, as this goes on, but this is just a murder case from a couple of years ago. That's just kind of interesting. They keep hammering home that he was a cop, even though it really had nothing to do with the murder. His wife was upset at him, and she allegedly ran him over, or according to her defense team, he was murdered in whatever party they were at. But, I mean, that's just the 2 days of that for this case that is really inconsequential. That's not world news. That's not world news. I mean, that's just gotta be a total attention grabber for people that may be interested, but I mean, that's just unrelated.
Killing her Boston police officer boyfriend. Tonight, you will hear his mother as she takes the stand. The scare in the U.S., the chemical leak, extremely flammable and potentially cancerous. How they're trying to get it under control tonight.
That's not something
This evening,
I've heard.
legendary musician Carlos Santana has been hospitalized, suffering a medical emergency before a concert. And tonight here, the father who just won a $1 million scratch-off, and we got a kick out of how he plans to spend it.
So before we get into this, none of that was world news. Very few. I mean, of course, as it goes on, and yesterday, it had very much longer segments. I think almost half the show was talking about the Pope. That's like 10 minutes straight just about the Pope, and then the rest of it was maybe, I think, the wildfires thing, they had covered that yesterday. That was maybe 30 seconds, maybe less than 30 seconds of them covering wildfires, giving burning up parts of New Jersey and sending smoke into New York City. And that was maybe 30 seconds yesterday. I'm very interested to see it. There's definitely more stories than yesterday, but once again, that's just none of this is world news. Very little of it is.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, and it's great to have you with us here on a very busy Wednesday night. And we begin tonight with the stunning and moving sight from Vatican City. More than 25,000 people coming to see Pope Francis as he was carried through St. Peter's Square. The bells tolling as the Pope's open coffin was carried across St. Peter's Square through thousands of the faithful. We took note as we watched the images come in. It was the people's Pope among the people again. Carried to rest at the front of St. Peter's Basilica, Pope Francis lying in state at the Basilica for 3 days now. And at his request, his simple wooden coffin has been placed at ground level, not elevated, so that those gathering can see him. He wanted to be on their level. Tens of thousands making their way to the Basilica, many quietly standing in line, others in tears, filing by the Pope's coffin to pay their respects, to offer a prayer, to say goodbye. The funeral is Saturday morning, 4 a.m. here in the East. I'll be at the Vatican with our team, and we'll carry it live for everyone back here in the U.S., right here on ABC. But tonight here, that moving sight, the Pope carried through the people, and our James Longman was in the crowd.
By the tens of thousands tonight, they came to see Pope Francis one last time, to say goodbye. More than 25,000 people from all walks of life waiting for hours in massive lines to honor the people's Pope. Francis lying in state in his simple wooden coffin, a stark contrast to the gilded splendor of St. Peter's Basilica.
The great mission of Pope Francis' life was to take the message from the church, go out into the world and meet people where they are. Well, now thousands of people have come to meet him as he lies in rest at St. Peter's Basilica, and they're coming from all over the world. Young, old, entire families are lining up, and they know that they are part of history now.
The day began with this solemn ceremony, led by Cardinal Kevin Farrell, the former Dallas bishop.
In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti.
Some of the very cardinals who will choose the next pope, joining bishops and the papal Swiss Guard as white-gloved pallbearers carried Francis on their shoulders from his residence to the Basilica. Slowly winding through St. Peter's Square, the crowd of thousands applauding. This pope wanted them close. The procession taking a similar route Francis took on his last ride in the Pope-mobile on Easter Sunday. Finally making its way inside, his coffin carefully placed in front of the altar facing the pews, not on an elevated stand or on a board like past pontiffs. In a church full of ancient symbolism, Francis knew the power of this simple act of humility. Yannick from Quebec waiting nearly 4 hours to see him.
I feel like it's someone from my family. And I don't know why, because I really don't know him a lot, you understand? But I don't know why, I just feel... In French, I will say, je suis émue.
She was clearly moved.
Yeah, I don't know why.
In your eyes.
I don't know why, because I love the way he was, you see? And that way of trying to put people together, that was great for me.
We met Lissy from North Carolina.
How did you feel when you were in front of him?
So blessed.
Really?
So blessed and so happy.
Late today, the cardinals meeting at the Vatican, acknowledging they'll be meeting every day. Their next big task, the conclave. More than 100 cardinals will choose the next pope. Francis appointed 80% of them. Francis has kept some traditions. When he's buried in St Mary Major, he will wear his pallium.
So that, I mean, the cardinal picnic part, they went over that really quickly. I mean, that's probably if you're concerned about the future of the Catholic Church, that's the most important part. And just kind of saying that, oh, he's appointed however many they had just said. I mean, that does not tell the full story of the types of people he had appointed. I mean, it's really from across the world, but it's just very interesting that they go over. I mean, it's almost I had said this yesterday during my recording, but it's not a lot of analysis. It's really just saying what had happened without really any other sort of critical lens on top of it.
A scarf-like garment and a symbol of his status as a good shepherd, a bag of coins featuring his portrait, and a document summarizing his papacy will be buried with him, both to identify him and his extraordinary work. But his other wish was just to have the name Franciscus on his plain tomb. Tonight, Francis lies in his simple wooden coffin in a basilica built to celebrate the history and wealth of the church. These competing forces, reform or tradition, now occupy the minds of the cardinals who must choose his successor.
Just extraordinary reporting, James, taking us all right into the square there with you. James Longman back with us again tonight, and just an extraordinary scene. You did report the Cardinals will be meeting daily now, discussing the future of the church. So we know with the funeral Saturday, when then is the earliest that the conclave would actually begin? And once it starts, how long does it usually take before a new pope is chosen?
Well, David, cardinals have scheduled multiple days of mourning with events every day. So the earliest it could possibly be is May 5th. Remember, they've come from all over the world, so they need time to get to know each other. As for the decision and that famous white smoke appearing over the Sistine Chapel to tell the world there is a new pope, well, with Francis, it took 2 days for him to be elected. This time round, we can't possibly know, but we'll be watching. David?
James Longman will be watching right here with you. I'll be traveling to the Vatican to join James, Terry Moran, Deborah Roberts, and our entire team for the Pope's funeral. ABC News live coverage begins at 3:30.
So they plugged this again. This is another one of the very corporate aspects of. I'd love to see what NBC or CBS's coverage of like this, but ABC is owned by Disney, and of course they own, an unbelievable amount of media. So of course they're gonna plug their little documentary that they had. They've probably had it for years at this point, but I very briefly clicked on it when it come out last night, and it's just a documentary about his life, and they're just plugging it here, and they're plugging the funeral coverage as well. I just think that's probably one of the more corporate aspects of this.
Saturday morning, we hope you'll get up with us early Saturday. And of course, we'll all be there for the ancient ritual, the conclave that James just mentioned. But we'll see you first Saturday morning for that funeral. In the meantime, we turn to the other news this Wednesday night, the wildfire emergency.
So that was significantly shorter than yesterday, but probably it's going to be a lot. I don't know. It's just it's much shorter than yesterday. I feel like it's, obviously it's going to be shorter, but I'd love to, I wonder what, the episode right after he died was like. I mean, yesterday it was over half of the broadcast. We're just talking about the Pope. So I have no idea. That's definitely one of the top stories, and it's probably one of the only actual world news things in the broadcast. And that's definitely something that's going to get more clips. Maybe that clicks. That's maybe something that's more other side of the corporate side, and you just keep covering the Pope, because that's a very, just if you just go online, there's just so much information about the Pope. It's something that people are very much taking advantage of to just kind of get views and clicks. I think they've almost like electionified the Pope. I mean, I have opinions about how elections are covered in the modern day, and I think it's the term is horse race journalism. I'm just kind of covering it as if it's like this race that's just continuously going, instead of just one day where an election is held. But treating the election of the next pope like it's a Senate race in Michigan is so crazy. But obviously that kind of stuff gets clicks, and it changes the way we definitely cover some things.
New Jersey at this hour, triggering air quality alerts all the way into New York City and Long Island for tonight and tomorrow. Look at the images tonight. More than 12,000 acres already burning, thousands forced to evacuate at this hour. The power's still out for many more. It could be the worst wildfire in New Jersey in 20 years. Trevor Roll on the scene for us.
Tonight, a state of emergency in southern New Jersey. An explosive wildfire tripling.
Very interesting that they're going to spend more time talking about this than they did yesterday. Like I said, this was like a literally 30-second, like almost like a throwaway. Like, yeah, there's a wildfire in New Jersey, by the way. I had not heard of it, and I'm from Long Island, but I had not heard of any air quality warnings going on down there. I don't live there now, obviously, but I'm sure if it was horrible, it would have been something I heard about. But
size in less than 24 hours.
This could very well end up being the largest wildfire in New Jersey in 20 years.
The Jones Road fire, reported around 9:45 Tuesday morning, about 90 miles south of New York City in Barnegat Township, quickly spreading to neighboring communities.
We're gonna lose this.
Volunteer firefighter Mike Berger shooting this video on the scene. The flames jumping the Garden State Parkway during rush hour. Officials forced to shut it down for miles overnight. This commercial building left in ruins, and authorities cutting power to some 25,000 homes and businesses.
This fire right now is staying low to the ground. It's burning down in the brush. These are all the pine barrens down here, so there's plenty of fuel to make this fire burn.
3,000 people forced to flee.
The authorities were knocking on everyone's door, letting us know to evacuate.
Yanira Luna, one of many making use of emergency shelters. In just over a day, the Jones Road fire destroying 12,500 acres.
And David, officials say new hotspots continue to pop up. You see several of them smoldering here behind me. Crews will be battling this fire for days, and it could char thousands more acres.
David. Trevor Roll, thanks for being on the scene for us.
This is definitely something that's important and probably worthy of news, but once again, this is supposed to be world news. I mean, there's so much happening in the world right now, and I think a fire in New Jersey is of course important, but it's just not world news. It's definitely something that just gets that click-through rate, or however you would say the viewership on it. That definitely keeps people probably a little more engaged than the complexities of actual global politics.
Get right to Chief Meteorologist Lee Goldberg of our station here in New York, WABC. And Lee, as you heard, these air quality alerts spread right into New York City tonight and tomorrow.
Indeed, David, and there's already a hint of haze in New York City, but skies could be a lot smokier tomorrow. Air quality alerts in effect near the fire in South Jersey, but they'll start at midnight in New York City, Long Island, the Hudson Valley. The winds are shifting. Let's track the smoke. It'll reach New York City during the late evening, but the winds strengthen during the day tomorrow, and that could spread some of that smoke all the way to the Hudson Valley and even into Connecticut, meaning poor air quality for really sensitive groups. Now, we'll get some rainy relief with this over the weekend. That's coming from a storm in the middle of the country. Severe weather tonight over the plains from Texas to Kansas. Maybe some damaging winds and hail, scattered storms over the southeast. David?
Lee Goldberg back with us tonight. Lee, thanks as always. Now to the other breaking news.
That's the weather. I mean, that's not global news. It's very strange to me that this is referred to as global news. It's definitely U.S. news. It's 100% U.S. news. But I mean, it's very obvious that these are the things that get the viewership. I mean, having a fire on the East Coast after the whatever the recent fire, or not so recent fires were in California, is definitely gonna get viewership considering how horrible those were. And then the tariffs, that's gonna get a huge viewership, and it's just not. Some of it's important, obviously. Some things that are important are gonna get that viewership rate, but there's just so much more happening.
President Trump just moments ago and what he said about his 145% tariffs on China, on all Chinese goods coming into the U.S. Will the U.S. or China blink first? And are President Trump and President Xi talking? Here's Jonathan Karl.
Tonight, a big shift in tone from the White House and questions about whether President Trump is preparing to back down in his trade war with China, as both sides signal they're ready to talk.
We are going to have a fair deal with China. It's going to be fair.
Are you talking to them actively now?
Actively. Everything's active.
China has been defiant since President Trump imposed a staggering 145% tariff on all Chinese goods imported to the United States. But today, a spokesperson for the Chinese government said China does not want a trade war. We will fight if we must, he said. Our doors are open if the U.S. wants to talk. If a negotiated solution is truly what the U.S. wants, it should stop threatening and blackmailing China. President Trump's tariffs have rattled the economy. The stock market having its worst April in more than a half century. Fears of inflation and recession. Monday, representatives from Walmart, Target, and Home Depot met with President Trump, warning his tariffs would soon cause empty store shelves in the U.S. A new poll shows anxiety among Americans. Just 37% approve of Trump's handling of the economy, an issue at the heart of his campaign and a big part of his win in November. The message today from Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent reflecting a shift from the talk of a trade war.
So, I mean, it's just very interesting to watch them cover this because it's such a messy situation because they don't want to back down, but I think they're finally starting to realize that the tariffs are a bad thing, like everybody had been saying for months on end at this point. But I mean, they set it up in the beginning like who's gonna blink first, the U.S. or China, and then they go into it and it's like China was they're just hanging out here. I mean, they wanted the trade the whole damn time. I mean, it's really only the U.S. that could stop this because they started it. We started it. To phrase it as this trade war that's already going on is obviously, get people interested a little. And I don't think it's the worst thing to try and get people interested, but it's just that's a little disingenuous, I think.
I wish to be clear. America first does not mean America alone. To the contrary, it is a call for deeper collaboration and mutual respect among trade partners.
Secretary Bessent echoing the word.
I mean, that's just so silly. I wonder if they're gonna talk about any sort of the European response to this, because the European responses, I think, is generally more consequential than the Chinese response to this, because the Europeans are our closest allies, and having them, once they're not relying on trade for us, they just move to China. You saw it in the first Trump administration. If you look at how many ports China owns in Europe right now, that's all because of isolation from the Trump administration. But I don't think that's going to get talked about because it's just less interesting and it's just a little more complicated. And I don't think people, the average person, might not be able to understand certain complexities of trade like that. And then there's so much history behind it too. It's like, because it's very much focused on Greece, and I guarantee the average American does not know about the financial troubles that Greece has faced in the last 10 to 15 years.
Words of Joe Biden's Treasury Secretary.
America first must never mean America alone.
Tonight, the president was asked if he is ready to cut his 145% tariffs on China, which his Treasury Secretary acknowledged amounts to a trade embargo.
How soon do you want to bring the tariffs on Chinese goods?
Well, that depends on them.
All right, so let's bring in John Carl tonight. This seems to be a.
I don't like that little clip because I'm sure he said not much of value after that, but it depends on them. It makes it sound, and this is almost treating. I think this is what a lot of news does to a little too much. They treat everything with a little bit too much legitimacy because that means nothing. What do you mean it depends on them? I mean, they said they're gonna fight. If we're not gonna back down on the trade thing, China's not gonna back down either. They got a stronger economy. They're willing to step in where the U.S. has stepped out. I just don't think the real concern of the trade war is being brought up here.
Major game of chicken on the global stage, John, with the U.S. economy and, of course, Americans going to the store caught right in the middle. The president has said many times, as you know, John, that he's got a very good relationship with China's President Xi. So what are your sources telling you? Are President Trump and President Xi even talking here?
Oh, that's a good question. President Trump has clearly implied that he has spoken to President Xi. Remember, Rachel Scott asked him if she had reached out to him, and he said it would be pretty obvious that he has. I called the Chinese embassy today, and I asked the White House very directly, have the two men spoken? Neither side would answer the question.
You'll stay on it. John Carl live at the White House for us. John, good to see you. Now to those major developments involving Ukraine tonight.
For kind of a summary of that, and I think it's going to be a summary for a lot of these, it's just stating facts without really any sort of analytical lens. I mean, I feel like just not much of that was even covered. I mean, it's probably good for the average Joe just trying to learn about the things which are affecting their grocery bill and inflation and all these other things that they probably care about. But I think it's almost dumbed down. I think people can understand it if you got a real analyst up there to give. Maybe you could consider it their opinion, but I mean, it's just a professional, analytical view of it. I mean, and then that gets into other horrible news shows where they get 8 goddamn experts or whatever, and then it's just 8 little people on your television arguing back and forth. If I'm sure there's a middle ground to be struck there somewhere, but It's just not much. It's just not much. It leaves you kind of wanting for more.
Lashing out at President Zelensky after Zelensky did not agree to what the U.S. proposed, which called for Ukraine giving up the land taken by Russia since the invasion and Crimea. Here's Martha Raddatz.
Tonight, President Trump lashing out at Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky on social media, writing, "He can have peace or he can fight for another 3 years before losing the whole country. The man with no cards to play should now finally get it done." Trump angered by Zelensky's refusal to accept a U.S. proposed peace deal that would prohibit NATO membership for Ukraine and would include Ukraine giving up land that Russia has seized since its invasion, in addition to giving up Crimea. Zelensky saying, "There's nothing to talk about. It is our territory, the territory of the Ukrainian people." Vice President J.D. Vance threatened to end the negotiations if Ukraine does not accept the U.S. proposal that calls for Ukraine to give up land to Russia.
We've issued a very explicit proposal to both the Russians and the Ukrainians, and it's time for them to either say yes or for the United States to walk away from this process.
President Trump did just say moments.
So it's interesting that they did not cover that at all yesterday with talking about leaving the table with Ukraine. It's nice that they did touch on it, or they're getting into it today. But it's just I'm very curious to see if they're gonna really even say how bad of an idea it is to give Russia whatever parts of Ukraine that Trump is willing to hand over to them. And then I would love to see some sort of analysis of what it would be like for Ukraine to be on its own. And I think if they're gonna go with their continued not talking about Europe's position in this, because Europe has definitely stepped in since Trump has taken office into trying to arm Ukraine to defend itself. I wonder if they're going to talk about any European leaders trying to step in and aid Ukraine in their own defense. And if you just say there's a really good, I can't remember, it's the name of a German defense contractor, but you can see their stock just shoot right up after Trump had it was after Trump had come into office, and then after the German elections had taken place, where the new chancellor had said that they were willing to step in to help Ukraine defend itself. And I'd like to see if they even show a map to really kind of show into perspective how much of Ukraine they're telling Zelensky to give up.
ago from the Oval Office that he believes Russia is ready to make a deal. Of course, Russia would be the country making gains in the deal. David?
Martha Raddatz with us tonight as well. Thank you, Martha. Now to Boston tonight and the dramatic...
So that's just, I mean, and that was so quick, and they didn't even bring up any of the attacks that had happened yesterday. I think it killed quite a few people in those Russian bombings. And well, obviously not exactly agreeing with saying, oh, Russia's ready to make a deal. They're kind of saying, oh, of course they are. They're the ones making gains. But they're the ones still invading the country in a very barbaric way. I think that's really where this kind of short runtime and not unwillingness for analysis going on here. And then this is going to be this case is, I think, probably one of the most corporate additions to this so far, because it's 2 nights in a row. It's a case that does not really mean anything to anybody unless you're involved with it. It's a personal case. And, I mean, it's just a couple. It would make a good documentary in a couple years, but I don't think it's World News Tonight worthy.
Testimony at the retrial of Karen Read, accused of killing her Boston police officer boyfriend.
Tonight, they always say the police officer
as she takes
as if it does not
time.
have anything to do with the case.
The Commonwealth calls Peggy O'Keefe.
Today, gut-wrenching testimony at the second murder trial of Karen Read, the former professor accused of backing her SUV into her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe, and leaving him to die in a blizzard. More than 3 years after losing her son, Peggy O'Keefe breaking her silence, recalling the moment she saw his battered body in the hospital.
He's bruised up, his eyes were closed. It's just not a good scene.
Peggy testified the defendant, Karen Read, shouted at her in that hospital hallway.
I hear Karen Read yell, "Peg, is he dead? Is he dead, Peg? Peg, is he dead?"
John O'Keefe's mom says...
This is kind of like the Violent Worlds theory. I can't remember the exact name of it at the moment. But, I mean, this is just stuff that is not world newsworthy. I would say this is barely even national newsworthy. This is just something purely here for public interest and watch time. Is this really on the same level as the Pope and the trade war? I mean, come on. I mean, like I said earlier, I mean, there's things happening across Europe right now. Very important things happening across Europe right now. Very important things happening in India right now. I mean, India just well, I think that was earlier today, so they wouldn't have reported on it at this point. But they had issued a statement saying that there shouldn't be any more Indian citizens in Pakistan. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. I mean, these are, nuclear weapon holding countries. I would think that would get onto World News Tonight, but apparently
Karen told her she dropped him off at a party.
She said, we went to a party. I left him there. I said, you just left him there?
But the defense claims Karen didn't kill John. They say he was killed after she dropped him off at the home of another cop. And today, one of John O'Keefe's oldest friends, Kerry Roberts, who drove Karen to help search for him, grilled by Read's defense attorney.
Did you lie? I did not intentionally. I said I misunderstood the question, Mr. Jackson.
The case has divided the town of Canton. Neighbors have taken sides. And key witnesses like Kerry Roberts, one of John's oldest friends, speaking exclusively to GMA, saying they've been harassed and threatened. For the crime of?
Telling the truth. It's my friend. I'm not going to not help. It's all about which side are you on. We're John's closest friends and family, and we still haven't been able to grieve because of all of this. It's all lost on this circus.
And David, that first trial ended with a deadlocked jury
and talk about the circus of it. I mean, this just contributes to it even more. I mean, that's kind of that kind of rubs me the wrong way of interviewing this poor woman that's been harassed, and I don't really know who's on the right side. I don't really care who's on the right side. I mean, but just adding even more fuel to the fire of this. I mean, this is just some poor suburb where some guy had lost his life, and his wife probably did it, but, it's national news, or world news, apparently.
Mistrial. This retrial is expected to last somewhere between 6 to 8 weeks, and if she's convicted of that second-degree murder charge, Karen Read could face up to life in prison, David.
All eyes in Boston watching this, and now much of the country, too. Matt, thank you. From Capitol Hill tonight, Illinois Senator Dick Durbin, the #2 Senate Democrat, announcing he will not seek re-election next year. Durbin is in his 5th term in the Senate after serving 14 years in the House. And at 80 years old, he says it's time to pass the torch. Durbin is now the 4th Senate Democrat to say they will not run again next year. When we come back here tonight...
That I actually like that segment. That's really just about all you need to know. It's important to know that, especially if you're into politics, that Dick Durbin's not coming back. It's another open Senate seat. It's obviously not something. It's Illinois. It's probably not something that Republicans are going to be winning anytime soon, especially in 2026 when there's a lot of backlash going on, probably because of the Trump administration. But I mean, that I think that was probably the best segment so far, because they just delivered you the facts, and then there wasn't anything much else there. There wasn't really a needed analysis. There's not everything needs crazy analysis. Of course, you could get into the threat of a primary challenge and all that, but it just happened at the time, and I think that part was great.
The medical emergency from music legend Carlos Santana. More in a moment. And the images here tonight, the scare in the U.S., the chemical leak, extremely flammable and potentially cancerous. The race to get it under control in a moment here.
So that definitely seems like not the biggest deal, and is just a story that could have been a big deal, but not really. I'd like to call back to the pilot of the newsroom we had watched, where they had were dealing with the immediate fallout of the oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. They're like, oh, it's this level, and then it's moved up to this, and then it's like a code red or whatever. And I think that's basically this. Somebody probably would have liked to, well, it would have been better for the watch time if this was a bigger deal, but they still want to talk about it, obviously, because cancerous, what's it called, get into the water. It sounds horrible, but I'm sure almost all this is entirely under control, and I'm sure you won't hear. Well, I'm not sure, but I'd wager that you probably won't hear anything else about this, because it'll probably be properly dealt with.
Tonight here, the images coming in from Houston. Emergency crews racing to contain a dangerous chemical leak on board a barge there. Authorities say a broken valve released a vapor form of butadiene, colorless and odorless. It's potentially flammable, explosive, and cancerous. The leak has been contained tonight. Authorities now saying there's no threat to the community.
Okay.
When we come back,
so yeah, they were running that since the beginning of the show, and it's been contained. It was nothing. I mean, what can you really say about that? That's just purely watch time. You hear, oh, here Houston, cancerous chemicals, and you think, oh shit, what's happening down there? And it's been contained. It's nothing crazy.
Here tonight, legendary musician Carlos Santana suffering a medical emergency, and what we've just learned about it in a moment here.
I feel like they always save these kind of pop culture ones towards the end. I have no idea who this is. I'm sure he was quite popular at some point, but it's definitely something to keep people engaged, because I'm sure he has his fair share of fans that might be watching and maybe not have heard of whatever his medical emergency might have been yet. And now, this airs as live television. You can't fast forward. You got to sit through the whole program, wait till the end to get news about this guy.
To the index of other news tonight, Rock and Roll Hall of Famer Carlos Santana suffering a medical emergency in San Antonio, Texas. He is now 77. He reportedly fainted before his concert last night. And just moments ago tonight, a spokesperson now revealing he has tested positive for COVID. He's now resting at his hotel. Tonight's show postponed. He does say he hopes to resume his tour on Friday, if he can. Tonight, a father in Illinois.
That was so ominous. That was very ominous, and it was very nothing. He got COVID. I mean, saving that towards the end is not really anything crazy. It's just not. Is it world news? Is it world news?
$1 million scratch-off ticket, and he already knows one thing he'll buy. Staying anonymous, he told lottery officials he plans to pay his bills, and then he's splurging on VIP tickets for the Chicago Bulls next season for him and his son. They haven't been to a game in 8 years. I hope you're courtside. When we come back tonight, the new mom at 97, and the big reveal tonight. They lined up today to see the babies.
So yeah, as the program marches on, it gets almost tabloidish. I mean, a father winning $10 million and he's going to go buy Bulls tickets. I mean, Is it world news? I mean, I'm gonna keep coming back to. I'm gonna hold them to that. It's called World News Tonight. I mean, maybe the first few segments were. It wasn't even a person that was the mother. It was a turtle. Oh my god, that's. I mean, this is nothing. This isn't world news. That's a turtle.
The baby's revealed. Tonight at the Philadelphia Zoo, it's their big debut, the incredibly rare sight. For the first time, the public able to see 4 critically endangered western Santa Cruz Galapagos tortoise hatchlings, little baby turtles. Less than 50 are known to exist in America. We first showed you the babies earlier this month. The Philadelphia Zoo's veterinary team caring for the eggs, watching them hatch, measuring the babies, feeding them. Tonight, the zoo telling us they are proud to protect the endangered population and proud of that 97-year-old mom, appropriately named Mommy.
Hi, David.
They say remarkably, she is a first-time mother at 97, now the oldest known first-time mother ever of her species.
She is our oldest and longest tenured resident, estimated hatching in 1928 and has been here since 1932. So she's about as Philly as it gets.
Today, families are lining up to see them. The zoo telling us the babies are thriving, exploring their new habitat. And tonight, you have a chance to help name them by voting on their website, philadelphiazoo.org. And by donating to their conservation fund, a chance to win a one-of-a-kind painting the babies made by walking across this canvas with green, non-toxic paint on their little feet. Tonight, the zoo happy to debut the babies and happy for that first-time mom at 97.
Congratulations, Mommy!
Our congratulations, too. Good night.
I really hate to be cynical sometimes, but I mean, with so much happening in the world right now, I think the world news could definitely be a little more serious. I really don't mind the fluff pieces. I think it keeps people engaged, and definitely I like ending off on a nice note there. It's it's baby turtles. It's nice. It's baby turtles, but I mean, there's just so much going on, and none of it was covered. I don't think there was anything covered that wasn't, maybe besides the Pope, that wasn't directly related to the United States. I think that's definitely lost. I think that I mean we get, the United States gets made fun of on the world stage so much because they're just very uneducated about the kind of world around them. And I wonder if that's because of the type of people we are, or if it's because this is our media, and it's very U.S. centric. I mean, I really don't know how you do any news in Ukraine justice without bringing up the European Union's response to any of it, or the trade war without the European response to it. That's probably the worst part about this. It's a lot of fluff, a lot of very corporate things just in there to boost the watch time. It's just not world news. I wish we could just run the world news and it would be informative, a little analytical where it needs to be, and just stating facts at the very least. I would drop the analysis if we could just state facts for maybe an hour every night, just about what's going on in the world. Thank you for watching that with me. I hit record this time. I can actually see the little button, but thank you.